The Enterprise Minister, Arlene is here. Thanks for joining us. Now, the Executive in its programme for government says the economy is its top priority, but clearly it isn't. I mean, for Sinn Féin, it seems to be policing and justice. For you in the DUP, it's parades.
Well, can I say the economy is the centre of the programme for government, and it's one of the reasons why we want to get stability, why we want to get peace, and we want to build a successful Northern Ireland. And if we are sure about that, if that's what we want to do, then we have to deal with the outstanding issues, and that's what we're doing. And I know people were very frustrated at the time of the Hillsborough Agreement, but we wanted to get that sorted out so that we could get back to the focus, and I'm very pleased to be here today talking about that focus, which is the economy.
But is it so settled and is it so stable? I mean, for instance, has Peter Robinson not effectively said he'll have to resign if Sinn Féin don't deliver on parades? So your key priority, above everything else now, seems to be getting delivery on parades.
What is key about the Hillsborough Agreement is good faith. We believe there is good faith, but if good faith is not shown, then obviously there are consequences for that. But let's talk about the economy.
But it's very important for people to understand what the priority is, and I think
the priority is getting
what is demonstrated, though, is that the threat to the institutions comes from, say, for instance, if you don't get your way on parades. So you are prioritising parading above everything else, not just the economy.
No, that's nonsense, Jim, and you know it's nonsense.
Well, why is it not nonsense? Explain to me why it's not.
Why it's not nonsense, because we want to see stability in Northern Ireland. That stability will only come when the institutions are stable, and you heard it this week, I think it was, from Declan Kelly, again, the US Economic Envoy, who told us very clearly that we needed to have that stability here in Northern Ireland to grow Northern Ireland. I'm a Unionist, and therefore I want to see a successful Northern Ireland. That's what I'm all about in relation to the economy as well. Seeing a very successful Northern Ireland and helping those workers, such as we've seen on your screen. And can I just say, in relation to that issue of Baker Hughes, and I do want to give this assurance, Invest Northern Ireland have been working very hard with the local management here and indeed with the parent company. And I have not lost all hope in relation to Baker Hughes in East Belfast. We're still continuing to work, and I think we can do something there.
But at the point when, for instance, the employees there were losing their jobs and that company was pulling out, you weren't even a full-time economy minister, you were acting up as First Minister. That, again, says something about your priorities.
It doesn't say anything about my priorities. I was completely over that issue, and if you listen to the radio interviews that day, I was on talking about the economy, talking about Baker Hughes, instructing Invest Northern Ireland to make contact with the parent company and indeed to continue to work with local management. I think it is key to look at companies like Baker Hughes, which are global companies, and they have made decisions in relation to the specific sectors that they're in, and that particular sector is the oil and gas sector. They had a particularly bad year last year, and therefore they decided they weren't going to, from a strategic point of view, continue to make drill bits.
They're not the only ones, though. With 3,500 jobs
lost. Let me finish. That particular sector had a particularly bad year last year. Now we want to help them be innovative to try and do something with the Baker Hughes site there, and I'm confident that we will continue to get the cooperation from local management. I'm meeting the union very soon, and indeed some of the employees, and I want to work with those people very closely.
But 3,500 jobs lost in this recession from North American companies alone, and again that particular instance seemed to come as a surprise to you, because you had apparently reassured the workers that the company was committed to Belfast, and yet it pulled out while you were negotiating parades at Hillsborough.
I think if you look at what we were doing with the local management at that particular time, they had absolutely no vision of what was coming down the line at them either. In fact, we were looking at new projects for Baker Hughes at that particular point in time. So this is a global decision, and we in Northern Ireland have to realise that when we have global companies here, that may be the consequences when we come to recession, which is why we're not just dealing with North American firms, as some of your correspondents wrongly said. We're dealing with other parts of the world as well to try and see how we can partner them, how we can help them to make good decisions in respect of business.
OK, but what about the function of the executive in general? We have a working group on parades, it's reported, we've yet to see that report, but what about the other working group, the one that you sit on, which is about making the executive work better? I mean, is it actually starting to tackle some real issues? We hear, for instance, that Peter Robinson is to speak about education tomorrow. Is he going to move towards what Reg MP wants in terms of education? Well,
the particular working group that I am on is dealing with the future, if you like, in relation to the executive. How can we learn from the mistakes of the past? How can we make it a better process? How can we spot things coming down the line before they actually hit us? And I think that group's working well. I'm on that group with Katrina Ruan, and it's co-chaired with Reg MP and Margaret Ritchie. It's met twice, and I believe we're making good progress.
Yeah, and what about the education issue? Because that seems to be Reg MP's bottom line in terms of supporting the deal on policing and justice. Any progress there? Any indications from the First Minister tomorrow about where that might be going?
Well, I have no idea what the First Minister is saying tomorrow. What he is dealing with is trying to make this a stable Northern Ireland, that we have good progress on all of the issues that are outstanding. And I think if you look at what happened at the executive just last week, the amount of papers that have been cleared is unprecedented. So I'm sure that there is good faith in this process, and what I want to see is us making more progress, because that's what the people want. They want to see delivery happening, and that's what I'm committed to doing. OK,
what about the election? Obviously Westminster looming, your own constituency of Fermanagh and South Tyrone. Talk at one stage that Norman Baxter, senior former PSNI officer, would be standing. It's unclear at the moment whether he is or isn't, but there are suggestions that talks are ongoing between your party and the UUP, at least at a local level. Well,
I think it's interesting if we look at the national polls today to see the actual tightening between Labour and the Tories, and again it points to the very fact that what we have always said about putting Northern Ireland first in a national context is what is key. And I very much hope that the Ulster Unionists will look at those polls and say, well, let's do what's right for Northern Ireland. And I hope when they do that, they will talk to us in a more meaningful way than they have heretofore about doing something in Fermanagh and South Tyrone, getting representation back at Westminster for the first time since 2000. I think that's what people want to see, and it's what I certainly want to see.
What's happening on the ground, though, because the newsletter reported yesterday that the talks were ongoing at a local level in Fermanagh between the DUP and UUP. Is that correct?
Well, I know that my party chairman made contact with the Ulster Unionist Party last week. I hope that that contact continues, because what we want to see and what the people of Fermanagh and South Tyrone want to see is real representation, something we haven't had now for over 10 years.
Arlene Foster, many thanks indeed.
Thank you.